My name is Lori Paris, and welcome to She Life. My mother, Catherine Smith Gatormson, whose mother is Catherine Victoria Smith, whose mother is Nancy Smith, whose mother is Marion Mackenzie, named me Lori Jean. I knew only two of these four women, but I carry their blood in my veins and their memories in my bones. May I speak our collective truth in a way that makes good change in a world that needs great change. The time has come for you and I to take our rightful sacred place in a culture that denies it. This is my story and journey to uncover the truth that supports my right to do just that, no matter the cost. I hope you decide you deserve that sacred place too. Hello, everyone. I'm in conversation today with Jacqueline McMahon, my former music teacher, who is also a performer and is a published author whose creative life has shaped so many people around her, including myself. I first met Jacqueline in the early 1990s when I reached out for singing lessons, and we have remained friends. Over that time, she has taught voice and piano, directed ensembles, nurtured young performers, and pursued her own creative writing alongside a lifelong commitment to artistic expression. As I said, Jacqueline is a published author and writes suspense and thriller fiction, including her novel When Love Won't Die, which follows one woman's ordeal after fleeing an obsessed lover. She has also written numerous plays for students and community theater, as well as essays and shorter works of fiction published in magazines and writing resources. Most recently, Jacqueline announced that she has been signed with Creative James Media to publish her newest book, expected out next year, reflecting her ongoing commitment to storytelling. In this episode, we explore her creative journey, how music and writing have shaped her identity, and what it means to express her woman wisdom through art. Hi, Jacqueline. Welcome to She Life.
Hi, Lori. Thanks for having me. It's fun to
Oh,
be here.
I've been looking forward to this. So many memories from years ago. Before we begin, can you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself? What's going on in your life right now? Where are you living and what are you working on?
Sure. I moved 7 years ago to a small community called Ignace, Ontario. It's 2.5 hours west of Thunder Bay, mostly because my studio that I operated with my best friend that was called Slightly Off
Mhm.
Broadway, which you were a part of,
Yes.
was just getting so busy that we were both getting sick all the time, two
Mhm.
people that never caught the colds and the flus. So I knew I had to semi-retire, and that wouldn't be possible with all the expenditures of running a business, like the rentals and the
Mhm.
insurance and all that,
Mhm.
and all the shows that you are expected to do because you're training these people to share their creativity. So I decided to move to Ignace because after doing a bunch of research, I found that they didn't have anything, not piano, not singing, not drama. So I thought this would be a place where I could choose how much to do and hopefully semi-retire. And that's exactly what happened. And for 7 years, I taught approximately 22 private students,
Okay.
worked in the school as an artist in residence, doing the drama club, put on some little musicals with the kids, had recitals twice a year. So I did all of that stuff. But at the same time, my semi-retirement was also so that I could really start to focus on my writing.
Mhm.
Because throughout the years, yes, I did manage to get a book out in 2014. This is the
Yeah.
one new paperback that I kept as a souvenir, and it was by Splice Publishing, which was a smaller Canadian press. It came out first with a publisher from New York State that did it in ebook, but then that publisher folded, and my cover designer actually suggested to this new publisher that was starting up that my book should be maybe included in her roster of the first ones to put out in paperback. So then I got the book with Splice. And even though the paperback is long out of print, you can still get the ebook on three sites for sure. They're on my website anyway, where you can click them and get the ebook. And so Splice put the book out, and I had a book signing at one of the libraries in Thunder Bay, and I sold 70 books at that book signing, which apparently,
Wonderful.
especially for debuts, is like unheard of.
Yes.
So that's when I thought, maybe I'd like to write some more books. All through my slightly off Broadway career, I wrote drama plays and musicals. And the more classes we had, the more I had to write. So I ended up writing usually 6 to 8 original scripts every year for like 15 straight years. So my writing chops were always exercised, but not in book form. So when I moved here, that was also one of my goals, to be able to work less at doing the music and yet still bringing that kind of creativity to a small settlement that had nothing with
Yeah.
that, but also to be able to start delving into all these files of ideas that I've had for the last million years and maybe getting some more books out into the world.
So I'm going to take you back in time. Um,
Okay.
well, we're gonna just like set a little bit of a foundation here, but I love what you just said about you did things in steps, and that's what I'm doing. So my retail shop was 4 days a week, then it went down to two. And so, that allowed me the time to, you know, write. So switch the careers, right? From
Right.
being a entrepreneur that sells used furniture to an entrepreneur that writes and peddles books,
Right.
right? And it is a process because we can't afford, most people can't afford just to drop one thing and go to the next. So that's amazing. And that works because that's what I'm doing right now. And if you do it slowly but surely, you need time to write. You need focused time to write. And so, going back in time, like I said, we met when I reached out to you for singing lessons many years ago. Um, Looking back, what drew you to teaching voice and music in the first place? And do you have a memory that stands out for you about our time together?
Absolutely. When I was a teenager, I think this was the moment when I realized music needed to be a big part of my life. I had joined a group that was directed by Jim Witcher, and they put on a full-scale Broadway musical every year. And the group was something like crazy, like 8 years old to 18 years old. It was like a really giant span of ages that nowadays they don't do that anymore, mix the kids of all those ages. So the first time I was on stage with them in The King and I played one of the king's wives. And I just knew the minute I walked out on that stage and things started happening, I was like, this is who I am. I just knew it. I had played piano, played in recitals because you have to. That
Mhm.
really wasn't my jam. Like I could manage it, but I didn't get all excited about that. But this, to me, being on the stage and performing and singing and acting, that was what I really found fun. So when I first met you, I felt like you were a person who believed she knew what she could do, but was looking for someone or something that could drag it out of her and help her to realize it. And I laughed when we talked about my no holds bar approach to when you're like over and over, I don't know if I can sing. And I'm like, well, unless you sing for me, I can't help you kind of thing. And it's true because I could always see potential. And over the years, I think we only had one little girl who truly was tone deaf.
Mhm.
Everybody else, it was because if their voice wasn't naturally placed, they would not know how to get their instrument to work. And I think, like I said to you one time, your instrument is built from within. It's not a piano, it's not a cello that's manufactured in a factory. Your voice is made out of your own instrument. So you might not know how to play it just because it exists. And I feel like, yes, you lacked confidence, but I don't think you also knew how to get the potential out of the voice that you wanted to use.
Well, it was really funny because you're toning that down. You sat at the piano and you looked at me and said, "Well, like sing." And I'm like, what am I supposed to sing? Anything. The scales.
Yep.
And
Well, because
you
I
gave me
had to
no
hear
other
you.
choice. You gave me no other choice. And I was even afraid to do that.
I know you were. And the
Yeah.
thing is, the number one thing that I realized when I was dealing with all these different personalities is they took the first step, which would be the hardest, is to get
Mhm.
in touch with me and book an appointment.
Yes.
So if they had enough confidence or they did it with thorough fear to get to that first stage, then I'm not going to coddle them. It's
Mhm.
like, okay, you're here. You made the decision. Let's get into it. Like,
Let's not
time's
waste
wasting.
let's not waste your money.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that goes into our next question. When you were giving singing lessons, what did you focus on first? Technique, confidence, expression, or presence? And so you said first was just get them to sing.
Yeah, first is get them to sing. But I also think because I had been in a situation in one class where everybody did the exact same curriculum. And to me, that would not be beneficial to an individual's growth. So I think I needed to get to know them as people.
Mhm.
And doing that, like giving them certain drills and exercises to see what their reaction was to them. Was it total shutdown because they didn't think they could do it? Was it fearful, but they jumped in and gave it a shot? Was it something that they did a couple and were like, oh, I didn't know I could do that? So I felt like I needed to get to know them, which would then allow me to start picking repertoire with their feedback and working, next on the next steps. I feel like technique forward is not always the way to go. And the longer I've taught, the more I've decided sometimes it's overwhelming and sometimes it's a turnoff. So you have to meet them where they are and then try to figure out how to model it. And then you can sprinkle in that technique and show them, look what you just did that you couldn't do at the beginning of this lesson or at the beginning of this month. And then all of a sudden they crave the technique. Like the vocalises, people would beg me for new vocalises. And at first it would be, oh no, I don't want to do that. That's hard.
So
So
for our viewers, what is a vocalese?
a vocalese basically deals with a type of a technique. Like it could be long sustained phrases on a single breath, or it could be quick rhythms that you would use in, say, opera or a pop song with lots of runs and fancy stuff. So it focuses on a technique and you sing it to the different vowel sounds, and it has an accompaniment on the piano that is not what you're singing. So it teaches you to be very independent and know your part versus the accompaniment, but it's all in the form of a song. So then it's much more fun than doing just a scale. Even if the vocalese focuses on scales, it's still more fun.
Do you know I still have my tape recorder with your vocalises and I keep it because I mean, I sing sometimes, it's usually just with my drum. But when people say, oh, you used to sing for me, I said, are you crazy? I would never until I went and practiced for at least several weeks to get that strength up. It,
Right.
and one of the things I really admired about you uh, when you chose to teach me was you just stuck with me and you helped me build that confidence. And I won a music festival.
I know. And the thing is, of course, I'm going to stick with you. You've
Mhm.
trusted your voice and your experience to me. I'm supposed to be the one that has your back. I need you to feel that confidence
Mhm.
so that when you go into situations that are somewhat scary, You know, she's there if I need her. I remember one time in a recital, I had this little girl who was so terrified
Mm.
when she first came. She would sing so quietly, I almost couldn't hear her. But I knew if I kept saying, I need you to sing louder, I need you to sing louder, she would shrink even further inside. So I explained to her mother when she wasn't there what I was going to do with her. And her mother said she doesn't want to perform, but she really loves music. So we just thought maybe she could do it. Are you going to make her perform? And I said, absolutely not. Fast forward 2 years, and the mom and the little girl come in and say to me, she'd really like to try the recital, but she's so scared that she might forget her words or make a fool of herself on stage. And what could I do about that? I stood in the curtain right behind, and I told her not to stand in the middle like the other kids. I told her to come and stand off to the side, and we put some kind of a prop on the stage so it looked very intentional. And I said, I'm right behind you in the curtain. Well, right beside you, really, in the curtain. If anything happens, I'm there. And I had her lyrics. There was one line where she hesitated, and she had the microphone, not me. So the audience was not privy to this. I sang the first word of that line, and she jumped in. And when she was done, the applause, you could just see like her little face lit up, like,
Oh.
wow, look what I did. And her mother came backstage after and said, you promised her you would have her. You wouldn't let her fall. And she said, she told me what you did. I would have never thought you would do that. And I said, well, to me, that was the only way
Mm.
to guarantee that that little girl knew if anything happened, I was right there beside her without being seen.
Wow. And to me, that's just grace. That's just grace. And so, do you think there's a spiritual aspect to performance? Do you think that?
I think it's different for everybody, but yes, I think everybody taps into something, whether it's wanting to be seen or heard, whether it's knowing there's something about you that you want to share, but you don't have the confidence to share it unless someone helps you nurture that. The connection with the music. You see so many people in their personalities that are not the same person as they are when
Mhm,
they
when they
sing.
perform?
Yes, and when they perform. And so, yes, I think that's very spiritual to those people.
I used to say to people, they'd say, "You look tired, you look frazzled, you look this." I said, "Oh, just wait. Once I get out there, I'll be fine." There's something about an audience, right? But
Exactly.
there's something about singing. There's something about it coming out. And so we were talking before we started recording the interview, and I remember when I went to you and I said, Jacqueline, my mother wants me to sing some religious songs for her. Like, we grew up in a house where Jesus was always on the wall, right? But you remember the old wooden,
Yes.
with Jesus with the heart, and his eyes would follow you. I have him now. He's right there. My mother, when she moved into the seniors apartment, said, "This is yours." And she sent it with my sister, along with the tiny one of the Virgin Mary. And because I said, that goes nowhere, that goes to me, And so I remember that when I came to singing "Fall on Your Knees," that song, "Fall,"
Yep.
I would crack up. We must have tried that 4 or 5 times. And I remember you looking at me, because I don't think I came across as a spiritual person or somebody who had that I don't know, respect or love for Jesus. And I said, I've got to sing this song for my mother. But every time I would say his name in that song, I would cry. And I still do. And I don't know why. The suffering, right? And you just kept your tenacious self. Okay, try it again. Okay, we'll get through it this time. Try it again. Try this. And then afterwards, I think you said something like, "Wow, I really respect that love you have." And and
Well, the
and,
thing
and you and
is,
you put it into perspective for me. It wasn't bad that I couldn't sing the song because I would start crying. It was my love.
I think you were very guarded with what you let people see when I first taught you.
Mm-hmm.
You came across very, I don't mean tough in a negative way, like a a hardcore motorcycle
Oh, oh,
riding, bank robbing woman or something like that. But very tough in that you knew to be an entrepreneur,
yeah.
you had to be respected. And so you came with that kind of baggage of, I'm not letting people see deeper into me until I know I can trust.
Mm.
And I feel like the longer I knew you, the more trust went between us. And then that's why I think you were so able to accomplish the things you wanted to do with me because we built the trust and then the walls came down.
Yeah. And that's why you're here today, because part of this is to give my respect to you for I healed with you teaching me music. There was something spiritual, your grace and your devotion to your craft, and taking me who, it wasn't my craft. I grew up unmoneyed, I call it. I try not to use the word poor. So we couldn't afford singing lessons or piano
Right.
lessons. So when I got sober, and I think I came to you before I got sober, and you went through my transition where I left and came back sober,
Yep.
and I went back to you because you embraced me when I was drinking and singing, and then you embraced me, and and then you embraced me when I found sobriety and wanted to continue with that. That was something in my first. I put down my goals for the first 5 years, and one of them was to go back and sing.
Right.
And so your spiritual our spiritual connection, that grace you have to give your gift and share your gift with even little drinkers, wannabe biker girls like Lori.
Though, Lori, when
Yeah.
I decided to do private lessons, it was always my thought that I wanted these people to be heard and to be seen, and that the music and the creativity was something that we were achieving and going down a road together. But it wasn't like cut and dry. It's not like math. Like, this is how you add up these two numbers, and that's the only thing. There is no other way. This creative journey takes so much more into it than just the technique or the cut and dry things that go with it. And I've had over the years people come back to me, and I don't know this because I was just doing what I do.
Mhm.
And they'll say things to me like, because of this that you did, this I did, and I have to just write you and thank you. I had somebody who's a skating coach in a small Northern Ontario town write me and ask me if she could name her skating show after the studio because
Wow.
she's trying to be the teacher that can encourage the kids and meet them where they are and not deal with just everybody has to do the same thing. And she said, and the first thing that came to me when I thought this is how I want to teach is just like when I went to Slightly Off Broadway. And so she asked if she could name that first skating show a salute to Slightly Off Broadway, and she chose all Broadway music,
Mhm.
but that was her connection. And the fact that she even asked me, like, would I ever know if she had a show and called it Slightly Off Broadway? Would I ever know this? Of course not. Her respect
Yes.
was so beautiful that she wanted to talk about it. So then, of course, I was like, send me pictures and all the rest of it. Because to me, it's like when these people come to me after all these years and give me a thing that happened between us that has affected them so
Mhm.
strongly, it just reinforces that at some point, and I guess this is spiritual too, I felt like this was what I was supposed to be doing.
Yes. It was your
And I knew
calling.
that connection. Yes. No matter how I reached them, whether they were in a drama class or they were singing or they were playing piano or they were in an ensemble, I was meant to share this creativity and nurture it in other people. It just felt like that's who I was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I need you to know, when I don't want you to hear this later, hear it now. What you did for hundreds, hundreds of people, not just children, but young adults and grown women who didn't get the opportunity, and you welcomed me in and didn't make me feel like you're a little too old to be here. Like you allowed me in, And that confidence that you instilled in me to be able to stand in front of a group of people and sing, to share that most personal, instrument has
Yes.
helped me through my whole career. And I've done good, sister.
You
And part
have,
of
bless
that's
your
because
heart,
of
you
you.
have. Well, Lori, it really means a lot to me to hear you say that because that tells me I did the right thing with my life.
You did. And I needed somebody who I felt I had strength of character, because I could have said, when you said, look, just sing, walked out, because I was a tough
Right.
enough girl to do that. And instead,
Yep.
I said, I'm going to stay. I'm going to
And
listen.
try this.
I'm going
Yep.
to listen to this woman. And I love this. You have this stoic, even now when someone compliments you, you're so stoic. You know, and it was like, oh, stop with the compliments, Lori, just sing. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway,
Um,
um,
I have to say, too, when I first taught you, I was in the early days of building my studio.
yeah.
It would have been really fun to have taught you 20 years later and see even more of the things that I learned along the way. And I learned them from the other people that I interacted with, my students, and what was working and what was really creating positive results and everything. Because I was more naive when I was first teaching.
Mhm.
And you came to me fairly early, like in the early 90s. I'd only been teaching for maybe 3 years when you came to me.
And that's what I didn't realize until when I had sent you out the media kit, and not everybody answers the questions, but you answered the questions and sent them back, and I was reading them, and I learned a whole bunch more about you, and I didn't realize that, I thought you had done this forever and you were so professional, and I just kind of saw you as the goddess, right? And then I made my children go to see you, and then
Yes,
my husband came and took some singing lessons for a
right.
while. Everybody had to go see Jacqueline because it was an experience. It was more than just a singing lesson,
And
right?
it was a connection,
Yeah.
right? That's I'm so blessed to have people like you tell me these things because that's all I've ever wanted was to reach people, whether it's through my writing, my singing, my teaching, whatever, like mentoring somebody, even listening to a teenager struggling with a moral issue. And
Mhm.
because they have that respect for me as their teacher, they're willing to tell me something that they wouldn't just share with anybody and ask for my feedback. And as long as it was always something that wasn't harmful or wasn't something that their parents needed to know about, then that would be different. But, it's like you build the rapport with these people. And so they're not just your customer. And that's why it always was like hurtful when the odd person would think the brighter light was somewhere else and they would just leave and go somewhere else because they
Mhm.
thought that's where it was better.
Mhm.
And I did have one go, and then the mom called and said, it's not what we expected, and you probably hate us and won't take her back. And if you did take her back, would there be like this stigma against us? And I was like, not at all.
Mhm.
Like you told me you were going, and I said, is there anything I can do to change your mind? And you were like, I just think she needs a different atmosphere.
Mhm.
But then when you came back, it showed me that our connection was real and that you finally got that. And then I got that kid into university for music after all this. And she achieved as many dreams as she could set out for herself. So it's about the connections, not just the craft that you're working on.
Yeah. And a shout out to the parents who invest their money into
Yes.
their children, and,
Yes.
and ensure that they get to that lesson every week, and ensure that that costume is made for them. A big shout out for them, because it takes that support. It
It
takes
does. And
that
they
support.
back up the practicing and they understand what you're trying to do. So they're there. They're the other side of the coin for the kids. They're the one that sees the kids 6 days that you don't out
Right.
of a week.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jacqueline the writer.
Okay.
So you've always been a writer, and you are now a published author of the novel When Love Won't Die. Put it back up there. Let's show the readers again. It's still available in ebooks, online. Go look for it. Uh, Along with many published articles, scripts, and plays. How and when did writing? I mean, I think you already answered that when it entered your creative life. Um, how does your writing allow you to explore themes or emotions that music alone may not?
Um, I don't always see themes in music, especially when somebody is performing one song. I think if it was a musical, like that one about Carole King, I just can't get the name of it in my head right now. That's a tribute to her whole life's work. So there's a theme throughout that, or many themes. But when you're singing one song, that isn't a theme of the whole life of the composers or the artists who recorded or whatever. When it's a book, I think people can go back. Like once a performance is done, nowadays everybody videos everything, but before it was live, it was done, and it was done. That's it, over. No more can you go back and revisit it. With books, you can read them over. You can ask yourself, like, oh, why did that character annoy me so much? And go back through and look it up. Or when you finish a book, you can sit back and go, wow. And it's a combination of the characters that are created and the prose, the way it's told, the way the plot unfolds and how that affects you when you're reading it. Um, I just always felt like writing was a way to share stories and creativity. And I think I told you when I was little, I didn't realize I was a writer in training when I was little. But yeah, come to my yard in the summer when you're bored, because we'll all be sitting there whining about how there's nothing to do. And then guess who jumps up and says, you know what we should do? And then I come up with this whole storyline, this whole world, a set of characters, a plot, assign everybody something, and then start directing it and telling them what to do. Pretty soon, they're all getting called home for supper, and they're like, no, we're not done playing yet.
The
And
play
then I
hasn't
would
finished.
also, yeah, I would
Yeah.
also inflict that on my parents back in the days of the cassette recorder. And I would go on my recorder and use my mother's wooden spoon for my microphone or my hairbrush.
Mhm.
No one could see me, but I thought I was being cool doing that. And I would record these things, whether they were stories or little programs where I acted out things and make my parents listen to them. And I do remember them laughing a lot. So I think they enjoyed it. Like they never cringed and went, oh, get lost, not another one. And so even though I didn't know at that point I wanted to be a writer, I knew making up stories was really fun. And my head is always full of stories. Like if I was four people, I could be writing four books at once. That would be such a dream because I have so many stories I want to tell, and I've got all these folders and files, and then I have to pick one. And
Mhm.
I'm in a writing program called First Book Finish with Rhonda Douglas, if anyone wants to check it out. She's a book coach and a published author. She's won awards, and she's leading this first book finished for women and binary non-binary, sorry. And she basically wants you to get your book finished, and she provides you with the tools and the support and the group get-togethers that helps you to do that. And the one thing that she really got me focused on was once you pick a project, if you really are passionate about it, stick with it. Don't let all the shiny new ideas,
Mhm.
oh, I'll just write a chapter on this, and oh, I'll just do some research on that. And then you have no books ever.
And that I think a lot of us struggle with that. That
Mhm.
you're into the meat and potatoes of the book, and it's the hard work, and that's you've got everything, and now you got to take all the research and you got to write it so it makes sense and it flows. And that over there just looks like it's a lot more fun.
So much fun, yes.
I mean, I right now there's the first book that I thought I was going to write. Then I wrote the second book because that had to come first. That got done. I want to go back to the first one, but now I got to do this companion one. But yes, staying just focused. But I do think that part of the process is you will kind of go here, there, everywhere until you can figure out how you're going to do that book. That's okay. I think that's forgivable. But once you know it, just finding that ability to stick with it. I went to Hay House uh, during COVID, and I became a member and I took their course, and they taught some really good things. And one of them was just like you did when you were a child, just start writing. Just start writing anything. And they started with just writing writing prompts for yourself, just getting a piece of paper 1 to 28, just writing prompts about whatever your book idea is, etc. So that brings us into a recent blog post that you wrote, spoke about the 5 places you like to write. And I agree with having more than one place to feel comfortable writing and not to just get stuck in only being able to write in one spot. Because you hear people say, oh, I couldn't write a thing because I wasn't in my, no, I can write anywhere, everywhere. Just give me this little, laptop here. I'm fortunate. I'm not trying to put anybody else down if you find you can't do that. But I'm a businesswoman. I've only got so much time because, like I said, I'm still operating my business, though it's gone from 4 days to 2. But now I'm
Right.
packing up a building because I want to move. I still have to write. I got to be able to write downstairs. I was at the end of the last book because you end up having um, time. I'm on a schedule. I have to get, what's it called when you've got to get it done by a certain time. Um,
Deadline.
I got a deadline. I don't care if I'm working down there 11 to 4. I brought that computer and I'd say, would someone look after? I'm going behind this wall because it has to get done. So to answer that question, so where are your places you like to write, and how do you deal with all that?
In the summer, I have a nook in my backyard that my best friend, got me that for my birthday, meaning she and 2 other friends built it
Mm,
for me based on things that I had said. When I'm in my nook, it's like it's such a safe, serene space that my creativity can just come blurting out all over. We have a boardwalk in our town that's lovely. And there's a fountain and the library's on one end of it. And it's because I'm in a town, it's never like so crowded and full of busyness that you can't find a little spot somewhere to tuck in and write. With the fresh air and with the little bit of activity, sometimes that's what you need.
mhm,
I live by 2 beaches. One is 2-minute drive and one is a 5-minute drive. The 5-minute drive one is a little bit down the highway. It's not as popular all the time, so you can go out there and sometimes you're the only person. You can sit on one of the big flat rocks and
mm,
just jot down ideas, and the water's lapping on the shore and the breeze and everything. So in the summer, there are some nice outside spaces. In the winter, I had to create some spaces, especially when it's dark. And I revamped my office many, many, many times until I got it to where it is right now. I have a little reading nook, and I have all my craft books on a couple of shelves. Then I have my to be read pile, which is sadly way too big, and
mine
all
too.
my extra notebooks
Uh-huh.
that I will use as time goes by, my desk, my computer, like everything that I need. But I also have twinkle lights around the window,
Mm.
and I do have a couple of candles, though I don't need to light them very often. But sometimes if it's really cold and I'm a bit tired, light the peppermint candle, and then that just gives the room like a festive little atmosphere. I just find if I can go to places where I feel like they're very open to creativity, rather than like I can't see me sitting in a food court at a mall, even if I could sort of tune everybody out or wear noise canceling headphones, I'd be too busy looking around all the time. It would be
Sometimes when
too
I'm
distracting.
sometimes when I'm just researching or trying to pull things out of the air, I'll go to um, a chapters indigo and
Yes.
sit there with a cup of coffee and a notebook. And I love it when somebody's curious and they say, what are you doing? And I say,
Yeah.
I'm writing a book.
I
Yeah,
know it
I
feels
did that
so
at the
great, eh?
beginning. I don't do that as much anymore because I have written the book.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You've got to get into the character, right? You've got to pretend to be the writer before you are the writer. You got to pretend to be the published author before you are. And it's okay, you know, because if you would have told me I would have been able to write a book off my bucket list, I would have said, that's a big ask. But
Yeah.
I put in the time and energy. And I'm telling you, folks, it took when I had those deadlines, when I finally said that has to be done there, that has to be done there in order for it to happen, it was taking up my every waking moment. Everything became secondary. There were no more going out for breakfast, lunch, or dinner with friends. And even when I tore my meniscus, when I was on my final deadline to get the copy to the editor, the final edit, I was in a bed with my daughter taking over the store, taking care of me in the bed. I didn't come out of it for 2 weeks because that's what they said would mend it the fastest. And I finished it in that bed on a pillow.
Yep.
And so it's when they say it takes more time than you'd ever imagine to get that done, it takes more time than you ever imagined. And
It
I
sure
now
does.
and now my family's used to it. My friends are used to it. But the first time they were really giving me a hard time. Oh, you don't possibly need to be doing it that many hours. Yeah, I do.
Well, they don't know what it takes to write a book. That's the thing. I've had to train people. You can't show up at the door in the middle of the afternoon and expect me to answer it if I'm in my office with the
Mm-hmm.
door closed and I'm in the middle of something. I won't even, like, I almost literally don't hear the door
Mm-hmm.
because I have focused on what I'm supposed to do. I have to say, though, like what you said about the bucket list, so many writers have imposter syndrome. They don't think because it does sound like such a huge ask that they are capable of doing that until you get your butt in the chair, you start learning and you start trying. Also that idea of just start writing something. That
Mm-hmm.
is a way to get the creative muscles going so that you can understand what it's like to throw words down on a page. I believe it's Terry Pratchett who said the first draft is just you telling yourself the story.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized you can write a first draft and it's not the finished product, so who
Mm-hmm.
cares if you write in the middle of it? Um, Go find out about this thing that you need to know about, like, say, the procedures that a police officer would do in this particular circumstance. Or you're writing about a location and you're like, find out the names of the bookstores and which ones are independently owned. You don't have to put that in the first draft. You
Mm-hmm.
just have to put a little note that you still need to do that. And once you realize the first draft is you telling yourself the story, then you can go back and start dealing with all the craft aspects that you have to deal with.
Yeah, my first draft is really Lori talking. Lori talking to you, Jacqueline, today is not the
Yes,
Lori, the refined writer. I missed
exactly.
words. I didn't have my grammar correct. I was needed an apostrophe and it wasn't there. And then when I go back and I go, okay, now let's remember the rules. Now we've got to mold this. We've got to make it sing because I think
Yes.
writing has rhythm. And if you have
Oh,
rhythm and you can put
yes.
rhythm into your writing, because I've had some people when I just got this editor, when we started working together, he played a little bit with my writing and sent it back. And I remember sending it back saying, I don't think so. Mm-mm.
Yeah, this is not my voice.
No, I really respect his ability to for his grammar and just all the things that he can do that I can't. His ability to look objectively at something and say, I need you to tell me more here, or you forgot that, or I'm missing that, but don't change my voice. And he was so respectful. I get it. He says, I was just testing to how far I could go. And I wouldn't let him go too far because there's a rhythm and I feel my own rhythm. So when I'm reading it
Right.
and I go, you, what did you do to my song? Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's coming from you. Um, I also think because I write genre fiction, so genre fiction has expectations by the readers. Um, Even with the expectations and the obligatory scenes that must be there for a reader to go, oh, okay, this is definitely a suspense thriller or definitely romance or whatever it is. you still have to have your own creative voice. You can't let the structure of that book become just, you know, regurgitating something that somebody else did. And I feel like when you find your voice, you know. And then when you're writing, you write it the way you would say it, the way you want to tell it, the way you want people to receive it. And then you shoot it out there, and then you just have to let it fall where it may.
And nobody has the same life experience you had. So, how
Right.
you're going to view things is different. And that comes out in your writing. So,
Exactly.
we're getting to the end of our interview. So, I want to ask you creativity often evolves as we move through different seasons of life. How has your relationship with music and writing changed over time?
That's such a good question because I agree with you. There's different seasons of your life, and changing the focus from something to something else doesn't mean you're flaky. It means you know what season you're in and what you want to be doing. When I first started, music was like 90% and writing was 10. Then over the years, it morphed into, say, 60% music and 40% writing, because once we had a drama department, the writing really, had more of a place in the studio. Now I would say it's 90% writing and 10% music, because I still am coaching a couple of gals who live in Thunder Bay. So they do their lessons on Zoom, but we get together once in Thunder Bay during the year and once here, and they come and stay at my house. And it's such a fun weekend. And we do concerts together, which is so fun. And it's usually like we do concerts for like a charity. Like we did one to help the kids at the school here raise money for their class trip to Toronto. We've done it to help raise money for the senior center. So, those concerts, we're not trying to make money from them. We're just trying to get together and share our creativity. So I do that. And I was working with the seniors, doing a singing group with them and a class called Music in Motion, where I did the music part and my friend did the motion part. And then we merged it together and they had a lot of fun with that. So it's still in me and it's still there. And I do like performing still. So I do like to do that, keep it up as much as I can. But now the novels, and you said it so well, that they take so much more time than you think, especially until you've written one. And then you're more prepared after that. Um, that's just now my priority in this stage of my life. I want to get some stories out, some books out before I don't have any more time. And I'm not saying it in a doomsday way, like, oh, I'm about to croak in a couple of years, so I won't have any more time. But it's like I've done the other stuff for such a long period of my life that I feel like I'm in the book writing season now,
Well,
and the blogging and all that, just like I'm creating my writer's persona online, because I want my readers to come to me because they go, she says some cool things, or, oh, I like that she likes this and she talks about that, or, oh, her blog posts are interesting and not too heavy, filled with too much intellectual stuff, because my readers are going to be genre readers. They're not looking for the next huge piece of literary fiction. They're not looking for something that is so highly intellectual that they wouldn't understand it. They want to be told a good story and hopefully at the end close the book and go, whoa, I didn't see that happening.
So we've twice now talked about how much time it takes to commit to the writing process, to sit down and
Yes.
just write. So can you tell our viewers how did you, and I literally had to train myself to take those
Yes.
hours. So can you tell our viewers what were some of the things that you did to train yourself to just sit and write a certain amount of hours per day?
Yep. Number one, I got, because I'm more analog. I got a calendar and printed it off, and then I put the writing time in the calendar. And I do that based on which days of the week do I have commitments outside the house or commitments online, and which days of the week am I more flexible? Which day does my blog have to come out? Which Thursday of the month is my newsletter going to be due? And then I start scheduling in. And because I'm also building my author platform, I schedule in when I'm posting on socials and which posts they are. I started doing a video series called Books I Enjoyed. And I basically, if I was using my own book, I would
I've
say,
seen them.
yeah, hey readers, here's a book I
Yeah,
enjoyed. Hold it up, give the
yeah.
title and the author, read the back cover or as much of it as can fit into an under 1 minute reel
Hmm.
and then post it. So that has to get scheduled in, like record it and post it on Mondays. Thursdays, record the link to the blog after you write the blog. Fridays, I do Fab Friday, and it can be any little thing in my writing week that is fabulous. And fabulous can be like, I got new pens in the mail. It doesn't have to be fabulous like I signed another contract. And then I do Tuesday
So
tips.
that's fabulous.
Exactly. I do little Tuesday tips. So those get scheduled in. And then my current book that I'm working on is another suspense thriller. So that gets scheduled in twice a week to work on the draft. And I'm only 2 or 3 chapters away from the end of the draft. And I
Excellent.
haven't been drafting that long because it's in the schedule. Does that mean I never miss a session or I never rearrange things? Of
Hmm.
course it doesn't. Does it, like yesterday, I just wasn't feeling it. So I took a break before I had to teach. Instead of saying, well, I've got 2 hours, I can get a lot done. I went, you know what? You're going to get nothing done because your head is not in the game. Go have a cup of tea, sit and relax, visit with your friend, and then go do your teaching. And today's a new day. And I felt more refreshed even taking a break. So you schedule it in, but you also have to be aware of how you feel, what your focus feels like what happens if someone passes away that's important to you.
Hmm.
You can't just go to the schedule and go, that's too bad, there's no crying and feeling sad right now because you have to write
Yeah.
from 2 till 3:30. So that's the biggest thing I've done, is just make it part of my schedule. And I have really educated my friends and family on what I'm doing when, and so I'm not available on certain days at certain times because I'm in a class or I'm on a Zoom meeting or I'm writing. And they have to just realize I'm not just, saying that to be difficult. It's what it takes. And then when they see the finished product, they're like, wow, I didn't realize it would take that much work. But then they're kind of impressed because you actually have a book you can hand to them.
I was
And then they
just
kind of get it.
I was just going to say that through that process when you're doing your first book, there's gonna there's gonna be a tendency for people to be a little, suspicious. Is this, are they just really taking their time away from our friendship or the family
Right.
or their family responsibilities? Then when you've got the first book, the tune changes. So there was some time between the first and the second one that I'm doing, and it didn't take as long to get my family to, oh, she's writing.
Yes.
The supper may or may not be made, right? You may be picking up Kentucky Fried Chicken again. I can't give you all the things I do, but one of them is I don't get out of my pajamas. I do most of my writing at my table in my apartment, my glass table, in my favorite chair, and that's where I write. And it depends. Like usually, I'll have my first 2 cups of coffee, and I anywhere in those first 2 cups, I end up in Word document.
Yep.
I never know, but I within those first 2 cups, if it's my writing day, I'm into the Word document, and I just start. So the trick is just begin. And if I'm in my
Yes.
pajamas and somebody messages, I a lot of times I if it's not anything important or they're just, kicking on the door, I mean, turn the phone off. I mean, we never used
Exactly.
to have these cell phones. You didn't have to answer the phone. And I find now I really like it. I like having that time in my pajamas with the cup of coffee, and then I have lunch, and I have a little bamboo uh, thing that I put my book on, and so that I can, even be eating.
I
I
love
can buy
pajama
those.
writing.
I can buy those tools now and not feel guilty because I'm using them. But every little thing helps you. And if you start enjoying those hours, and I mean hours, I do
Yes.
anywhere from 4 to 6. I don't go if I start getting tired. I mean, in the morning I write the best because I'm clear.
Yep.
Then maybe after that, that's when I'm going to kick the tires, go look at some research, not other research, research for the book, right? And that's what I do. I was in pajamas a lot in 2025. They
Yep.
weren't even
Pajama
nice.
writing
They weren't
is
even nice
fabulous.
pajamas.
What doesn't matter though? Pajama writing is fabulous. I
It
have to
is.
say, I
It
enjoy
is.
that too with your cup of coffee and your pajamas, and you just feel like that's the way the writing life should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
I tend to leave my phone in my bedroom, and
Mm,
then when I'm in my office, it can beep and buzz and twang all at once. I'm nowhere near it, so I'm not tempted to look.
yeah.
And I feel like that, like I've had people write me and say, I've texted you 3 times, and it might seem in their world to be extremely important, but it really wasn't worthy of texting me 3 times. It was not a life and death thing.
Mhm.
I've had people come to the door and I used to answer it and spend so much time trying to explain why I should be writing and that I don't have time right now and let's get together when. And by the time I'm done, it drains my creativity because
Mhm.
now it feels like I'm having to make excuses for my writing and they're not buying it. And then I'm not an imposter. I'm doing what I'm doing. So then not answering the door has become another thing. And then I'll get a message and go, yeah, I popped by, the car was home, but no one answered the door. And I have
Oopsie.
no problem saying I was probably writing because if I'm writing, I don't answer the door. And they're getting used to that now.
Yeah. So
Yep.
we're in our last part of reflection of
Okay.
the interview. What would you say to someone who feels they don't have a voice or are afraid to express themselves creatively?
Well, it's easy to tell everyone you do have a voice, but you're not them and you don't know what they're up against. In terms of writing, I would tell them get a journal book that you love, get a pen or a pencil that you love, make a beverage that you love, and just sit and write for your own self
Mhm.
and then read it. Write it, read it, write it, read it. That's your first step. Like, prove to yourself that you have something to say. Then you have to take your steps very carefully when you're going to come out and read something. It might be that you wait until you've met someone that you really think gets it, like maybe a fellow writer. And so you finally agree to share what you feel is a fairly polished thing, right? Because now it's going out there to someone else. And the two of you do a little swap and you read each other's and maybe ask them for a piece of specific feedback so that if they're not great at critiquing things, you don't get a, well, I didn't like this and I hate people with blue hair and all these things that aren't important, but just maybe say something like, how did it make you feel when you read it? Or do you think my character's dialogue sounds like a real person? Some aspect of it that you are wondering how you're doing. That's the next stage. And then maybe join something online where you can share or not share when you're part of the group, but you're around other writers and you can hear them sharing. And it kind of lets you decide when you're ready to say, well, things that they've said, like that wasn't so scary for them. And I have something to say that I think this group would be open to. You have to build it up step by step by step. But I think the number one thing is you have to convince yourself
Mhm.
first that you have something to say. This is your voice. And how important is it to you that your voice is heard in this particular idiom of creativity? Like, do you want your voice to be heard as a writer? Do you want it to be heard as a performer? Do you want it to just be heard amongst your closest family and friends? Or do you want to shout it from the rooftops at a huge publisher where it could be global? You have to decide all those things. And if you're not confident in your voice, you have to start small and build up your confidence first.
So before we close, is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers? Something that feels important to say?
Wow. I mean, we've had such a great
Mhm.
conversation. It's crazy. I guess I want to say to every person out there listening who's a writer, If you want to write a book, write a book. Don't think about, will it get published? Will I have to do it myself? Will I get picked up by an agent? Don't stand in your own way. Just write a book. If that's your dream that you want to do it, do it. If you don't know how, Google, look on YouTube. There are so many videos on
Mhm.
YouTube with how to do this, how to do that. It's not going to be as hard as you think it is. You just have to get off your scared little butt and do it. I would also say to readers, if you get asked for feedback, before you give that feedback, ask yourself, how would I feel if somebody said this to me? Because you might not think you're being negative or a little bit mean because you really truly believe this is what's wrong. But how would you like it to be said to you? And then say it that way to the writer, and you'll be so much more helpful than the people that, the writer reads the first couple sentences of feedback and shuts down because it's just like basically your book sucks. And that is going to be super hard for their mindset to get out of. So, yeah, I would just say, like, be yourself, everybody. You all have gifts, whatever you choose to do, and your gift doesn't have to be a creative gift. It can be any kind of gift. You might be a good listener. You might be the baker of the best pies in the world. We all have a gift. If your gift is writing and you truly believe that, then you just got to go for it.
Well, see why she's such a good teacher? Thank you for being my teacher, Jacqueline. And
You
can you
know,
hold?
Lori, thank you for being my student and for giving me all this feedback, and also for staying connected all these years in whatever form that took, from following each other on Facebook to actual in-person encounters. It just means the world to me to meet new people and they become a part of our lives.
Oh,
So I
my
thank you for
pleasure.
being a part of my life.
My pleasure, Jacqueline. Anyway, so pick up that book, When Love Won't Die Again, and tell our viewers your website address.
Yes, if you just put JacquelineMcMahon.com, you'll go to the website. It has the links where you can buy the book. It has where the page where you can sign up for the newsletter.
Mhm.
If you have any questions of me as a writer or from this podcast interview, it has a contact page that'll come straight to me and we can chit chat. It's got all my blog posts up there. So just go to JacquelineMcMahon.com if you want to find out more.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Lori Paris, and welcome to She Life.
But then when I moved here, I knew that I wanted to
Give me
keep
one
writing
second.
books.
Cut. Give me a second. Oh my God.
Cattail.